Welcome to episode 18 of the Grocery Guru, and we're here with that guru, Andrew Grant. How are you?
Morning, Darren. You well?
I'm good. I saw Boris's announcement, like most of the UK, on Monday night, and the new normal. I'm confused. Andrew, what's going on? What's going to happen?
Well, well, if I knew that, I don't think I'd be here. I'd be putting some bets on the stock market. Yeah, it's all a bit weird, isn't it? It's sort of like it's sort of being handcuffed and you can see the key at the other end of the room. It's like one of those Jeopardy movies. Yeah. Or escape room or whatever it's called, where you can sort of see how to get out, but you're not allowed out. It's a little bit weird.
I hear lots of contradictions around. This guy says this and this other person says that, and it's like...
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the sort of the game we're in, it is a bit strange. You've got, on the one hand, you've got the head of Network Rail saying we're going to put 10% fewer trains on because we're expecting 80% of normal capacity.
Right.
Then you've got the head of Goldman Sachs saying, no, everybody's going straight back to work the minute we can. Right. So that's a bit contradictory.
Yeah.
And then you've got another thing saying footfall in shops will go up 50% post-lockdown.
Plus 50%.
And everybody talking about this, massive spending spree, £250 billion pent up savings. So it sounds like people are just going to go mental, which I imagine they will.
Because we've got the four-step plan coming over the next few months. Everyone knows that. So we're going to talk about that. So when's this 250 billion going to start being spent? Are we thinking during March, or are they going to wait a few steps?
Well, I forget the exact date. It's when non-essential retail opens. So when all the clothing shops and department stores and what have you open up, that'll be a big tranche of spending. Right. But obviously the big one will be when pubs and restaurants can start serving again is that May, I think?
17th of May, I think. That's 5 days after my 50th birthday, so you won't be able to take me out.
Okay. There's the push for a card, I can see. No, but what I found fascinating, coming back to sort of our game and supermarkets and what have you, is they have been one of the clear winners of this pandemic because they're about the only place you can go. And I was looking at the Kantar data for January, which is obviously a slow month in normal retail land. But the grocers were up 12% year on year. Now, there's bugger all inflation, so that 12% is all growth. Yeah. And of course, you imagine most of it's come from pubs, restaurants, and hotels. So over a year, so in 12 weeks, that's worth about 3.6 billion bonus to the supermarkets, which is 16 billion a year, round numbers.
Yep.
Now, obviously, if that all suddenly goes back to what we call out of home,
yep,
then they'll be in zero growth territory.
Yep.
After a year where they've spent a fortune on being COVID prepared and dealing with the massive growth of online deliveries.
Yep.
I wonder what they budgeted for this year, because not only could they potentially lose that 12% growth, it could go big time the other way if people just decide, right, we're eating out all the time because we've had a whole year of not doing.
Well, that's very true. So if you're a buyer looking next year back at this year, you're going to be down year on year. You've budgeted probably up. You're going to come out to the suppliers with your begging bowl. Could be tough.
You're exactly where I am, Darren, because I think exactly that. Because in a normal year, you've got 160 categories in a supermarket. Yeah, some of them are going to be affected because there was a royal wedding last year, or it was the World Cup last year, and you always budget for that like-for-like dip the next year. But the problem they've got this year is they've got the world's biggest like spike as a result of COVID, which potentially won't be there this year. And you never budget for reduced costs, do you? Yeah, because think of all the transit vans they've bought to do the home deliveries. So you've got costs going like that. You've got your potential like-for-like sales going like that.
Yeah.
Who's going to make up that gap? I can bet you £10 of your own money who they'll go to.
And is it going to create a very fierce, competitive supermarket world next year, whilst they all try and fight to get back to where they were?
Well, I think it will. I think it will. I mean, it's almost it's like almost like an artificial gap, because it's, last year for the supermarkets was a bonus, if you can put it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
But effectively a non-repeatable bonus.
Yeah.
But businesses bake in what they take. So I imagine there'll be a massive scrap to retain as much of that as possible, because if people are determined they're going to go and spend the money in the pubs and the restaurants and what have you, then they're determined to do it. You're better off stealing business from your nearest competitors to shore up the sales line. It's going to be really interesting.
And the bluntest tool to do that is always price.
Say that again, sorry.
And the bluntest tool to do that is always price. Now, we've also got in the midst of this, Asda have just announced a bunch of potential job losses, haven't they?
I think that's just all part of the mix. 3,000 losses, but maybe job transformations into more forward-facing roles. So, a big restructure, because online is growing so fast. So just following the trend that most of the others have jumped on in the last year.
Let me just add into this. I've got a report here that's come across the MBM desk from Dojo, who are one of those payment guys, where you tap your card on the thing that the barman hands you. These guys are new on the market. What's that?
I said, all right, I'm showing a bit of interest.
And what these guys have said is they've looked at 500 companies across 36 markets, and they've looked at something called purchase intent. Now, the bits that are sticking out here for me are home furnishing is up 458%. Okay.
Yeah, everybody's bought a bed or a sofa in lockdown.
That makes absolute sense.
There's no point getting up in the morning.
The second one is mail order catalogs. Studio cards, I guess. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, I'm getting that. The one that I don't get is the fifth one is silver, but I think this is looking at company performance as opposed to absolute purchasing. Okay. The 18th one is copper.
Right, that's strange.
It's very odd. But here's one of the biggies. What we're going to see is a huge hike in camper vans.
No, right, yeah, get that. I mean, staycations and, supposedly Cornwall and Devon are sold out for July and August. A bit like last year, you could not buy, one thing you could not buy, canoes and kayaks and paddleboards for love nor money.
Well, actually, that ties into sporting equipment, was up 110%, which makes absolute sense.
And then the biggest queues last summer in our village was outside the bicycle shop. People and the deliveries of new bikes every week were staggering.
Yeah, that makes sense. We see them here. We're coming right back to our industry, and the number one here, UK public purchase intent ranked by percentage change. We've got here supermarkets, obviously, up 6%. Now that's 6% on a £205 billion industry. That's a big old oil tanker moving around, plus 6%, which is fabulous for us.
Well, Kantar would say it's 12% on 234 billion. So the numbers, and that's ONS, which you trust.
Yeah, and then they've split down the categories. The one that fascinated me was snack food was down, but then I guess we're having more prepared, organised meals as a family. So less
food on the go and lunches at your desk, which is where a lot of snacks are sold.
Actually, of course, yes, didn't think of that. And the other one I wanted to pull out was soft drinks plus 3%, just at home, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Property was up, and then these guys were trying to look forward to 2021, and there's a lot of contradictions in this report, a bit like we were saying. Are people going to all go back to the office? Are they going to stay at home? I guess my answer would be, thinking about it from a behavioural point of view, people want flexibility. They've never enjoyed the flexibility of working like they've had before. So maybe half of them, and I mean half in terms of their mind, wants to go back to work and see their colleagues, but half wants to be at home. So maybe we're looking at more of the 4-day working week, or 3 days in the office, 2 days at home.
Yeah. I think what's inevitable is that built up spending, because, you know, for all the gloom and doom, and there has been a lot of gloom and doom, for quite a lot of people who managed to stay in employment and work from home, they've saved a fortune.
Yeah.
You know, I think of my sister who used to have to drive 90 minutes each way to work.
Yeah.
She is saving literally hundreds and hundreds of pounds a month on car lease fees, because the mileage is so low, and on petrol.
Yeah. Right.
You know, and if you've got two people in the household working and spending that sort of money on, rail season tickets, parking at the station, car leasing fees, petrol, you could have households with £300, £400, £500 a month burning a hole in their pocket, and I think that's going to be released.
Yeah.
I saw a great cartoon in, I think it was on Tuesday after Boris's speech. It was one of these. It was a picture of a street scene with people all passed out in the street and fighting and spilled beer, and it just said 21st of June, just after lunch.
I saw that. It's very good. Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Just conscious of time. Our 3 takeaways. Let me throw one in the mix. Next year could be a hell of a fierce fight between the supermarkets on price as they look at budgets year on year.
Yeah.
If my first takeaway, what's your second?
Yeah, it's going to be more of the same. It's going to be, you know, think of categories that have benefited from the new normal and think of categories that have suffered. So, you know, sandwiches and lunchtime and snacks, will they really rebound? And, you know, what category decisions are retailers making now that is going to influence that? Yeah.
And I think the third one, my takeaway would be budgeting forecasting. Worse than it's ever been. It's going to be almost impossible to get it right. So managing expectations around that is absolutely critical, because you're not going to get it right.
Yeah, and I guess from uncertainty, flexibility. But I mean, you know, the supermarkets have shown just how flexible they are when they're faced with a pandemic. I'm sure coming out of it, they'll be pretty flexible. Uncertainty is all you can be certain of is uncertainty, I think somebody once said.
I'm sure a very wiser man than you and I. Andrew, thank you. We will see you next week.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.